Hi, Paraic here, gardener on the Pat Kenny Show. Again, thank you for all your questions. A very busy show this morning. Here are some of the plants that I chatted to Pat about. And really the point I was making, if you plant these in your garden now, you'll have colour from certainly the middle of May right through until the end of the summer, particularly the summer flowering varieties. But I also chatted to Pat about this lovely plant, which is one of the dwarf lilacs, and you'll see lilacs flowering in many gardens at the moment. This is a lovely variety called Agnes Smith. It's a scented white variety, beautiful sweet scent, typical of a lilac, but the plant itself only grows to about 3 or 4 feet in height. It's quite a dwarf variety, very compact, flowers brilliantly every year, and the flowers tend to shimmy in the wind, so they look really nice. It also comes in a pink variety called Miss Japan, which again is a nice dwarf variety with lovely baby pink flowers. So again, if you want a little bit of colour in the garden just at this time of year every year, then lilacs are a really good choice. The other plants I mentioned, really kind of looking at bloom, which is coming up the June bank holiday. Certain plants, if you want colour for June and right through to the end of the summer. This is a lovely variety of Nemesia called white vanilla. So it's a vanilla white flower, beautifully scented. It smells of vanilla. It's absolutely gorgeous. And again, it flowers the whole summer long. Can be grown in a pot or container, or you can plant it out into the garden soil. Here's one for your bees. It's called Bees Alive. So again, it's a lovely little plant. Again, for pots, containers, hanging baskets, window boxes, or indeed out in the garden soil. The bees just love this plant. I planted it in my own garden last year. It flowers the whole summer and attracts the honeybee into your garden. They love the nectar and flower. I think the flower in particular is quite attractive. Again, the dianthus are just coming into flower, the little baby carnations. So again, this is a lovely one called Super Trooper, which again is highly scented, very dwarf, very compact, brilliant in pots and containers. It comes back year after year. And also the lovely petunias. So this is one called Petite Blue, which is a two-toned petunia. Again, it's just starting to flower now. So all of these will be available in your local garden centre. Plant them now. They'll continue to flower right through until the end of the summer, right into autumn. Now, we've got lots of questions in, so here we go.
Okay, so the first one comes in from Andrea. So I want to plant a tree in our small front lawn, something that will look full all year round. We were recommended a flamenco salique. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but don't they lose their flowers come winter? They
lose their foliage. That's the flamenco is actually a variety of maple. So if you're looking for something evergreen that's going to retain its leaf all year round, you're really looking for plants like, if you want something with a nice shape, say something like a typical tree shape with a central stem and a round head, there's a lovely shrub or small tree called Euonymus bravo, and it's available about 5 to 6 feet high. It'll grow, it retains its lovely golden foliage 12 months of the year, so right through the winter it retains its leaf. It's a bright yellow and green leaf, really bright, very attractive. It's got small white flowers in the summer, and you get it as a standard. So again, if you go into your local garden centre, ask them for Euonymus bravo as a standard plant. It'll be standing already about 5 feet high, and ultimately it'll grow to about 6, maybe 7 feet in time. You could also use one of the ligustrum families. There's one called Texum, which is the wax leaf ligustrum. Again, you'll be able to get it in your local garden centre as a standard plant, so a nice clean stem, a nice round head. They call it the wax leaf ligustrum because the leaf is very waxy. It's dark green, beautiful white flowers, very similar to the lilac actually when it's in flower. Small white flowers, highly scented, and again, a very easy plant to grow. Or indeed, you can get a plant called Photinia red robin as a standard plant as well, which again has a central stem and a round head. So pop it into your local garden centre. They'll have a good selection of evergreen small trees, and particularly as standard plants, and they'll retain their foliage 12 months of the year.
Okay, so this comes from Bernadette. So looking for some trees to grow high and block houses at the back. Do you have any recommendations?
Okay. Well, there's lots of trees that can be used. I suppose just to be careful that when you're planting trees, that you select a tree. Sometimes fast growing isn't necessarily a good thing, because many trees like Lelandii or poplars continue to grow fast and can often become a bit of a nuisance, because when they're very tall, it's very hard to maintain them and keep them trimmed. If you want to block a window, there's a range of trees called the pleached trees. And these have been specially trained to have a clean stem and foliage right at the top. And they're trimmed or clipped into a particular shape. But they're brilliant for blocking windows or blocking views, and at the same time they're quite tall, but they never get too vigorous. So again, look for those. They're called pleached trees, and that the pleach means the way they've actually been trimmed and shaped, and they'll come in varieties of lime trees, or things like hornbeam will be trimmed in this shape. Another very nice plant are the birch, the silver birch trees. They'll still grow to 18, maybe 20 feet in height, but at the same time they won't grow any bigger than that. So I would class them as kind of a medium size, medium to kind of large tree. Varieties like Betula jacquemontii is quite nice because it's got beautiful green foliage in the summer. It changes to lovely yellow in autumn, but in particular the winter colour from the bark is really nice. And you can plant Betula jacquemontii in close groups, so you can plant 3 or 5 together very closely to give you that blocked view. So if it's only 1 or 2 windows you want to block, I'd look for that particular tree, Betula jacquemontii, plant maybe 3 or 4 of them together to block that window. It'll make a beautiful architectural tree. It'll give you colour all year round from the bark and from the leaves. The leaves will drop obviously in the autumn, but the bark is there for the winter, and that'd be an excellent choice. Or Google the pleach trees and have a look at those as well.
Okay, so this comes in from Ivan. So moss on tarmac, what's the best option for it?
Okay, so the good old moss. So moss, again, lots of it round this year. If you've got it on your tarmacadam, your paving, any hard surface area, walls, slates, tiles, the best treatment I find is pack. So it's a liquid. You simply mix it in water, apply it on a dry day. So this weekend is promised dry. Treat the area, and the moss will be dead within 6 or 7 days. So the treatment to use is pack. You'll find it very effective. Apply it in dry weather, and it's fantastic to use in any hard surface areas: gravel, paving, patio, tarmacs, walls, slates, anywhere like that. That'll get rid of it.
Okay, so this comes in from Ken. So after the severe storm we had in North Kerry last Friday, a lot of my beech and whitehorn hedging has been wind burnt. Is there anything that I can do to make it recover?
Okay. So not just windburn, we're actually seeing a lot of frost damage as well. I was saying to Pat at the start of the programme, I got lots of calls this week about beech in particular, laurel, forest flame, hydrangeas, many plants that were actually burnt with the frost on Saturday night. So what happens is the plants come into growth. The growth is still very soft and very vulnerable. And if you get wind or you get frost at night time, you get a browning effect, a burning of the young growth. That's only a temporary setback, so don't worry about it. The fact that the leaves have been stripped off the trees will come back into leaf again. So my advice really is any plants that have been damaged by wind or frost, give them a feed now of Osmo Pro 6. It's a tree and shrub fertilizer. You simply sprinkle it around the base of the tree. A day like today would be fantastic because the rain will wash it in, and within a week or 10 days the trees will be back in leaf again and they'll be perfectly fine. So it's only a temporary setback. The wind has been damaging, and in particular the frost this year has been damaging, but the plants will recover from that, particularly if you feed them, and do it this week if you can. Osmo Pro 6.
Okay, so this is from Cleena. So what kind of soil does lavender like? How best to plant, and how close can you plant them together to line a path?
Okay. So, great question. And lavender is often used to create a small little screen or small little hedge, or to border an area. It's a super plant for that. Remember, lavender is a Mediterranean plant, so that'll give you a clue in terms of the type of soil and the type of positioning to place it. So it needs full sun, so a bright sunny location, and the soil needs to be very free draining. So my advice is to add a lot of grit or a lot of gravel. So if you pop into your local garden centre, ask them for some horticultural grit or horticultural gravel, and dig that into your soil, to the extent that when you put the spade back into the soil, you should hear the crunch of gravel. So about 30% grit and gravel to 70% soil, or even 60-40 soil to gravel. So a nice gritty mixture for the lavender. Another tip is to raise the soil up. So create like a small mound. So you're keeping the lavender up off the ground when it's planted. So like a little ridge for potatoes, just elevate the soil after mixing the gravel through it, and plant your lavender along the top. The one thing that kills lavender is actually the wetness in Ireland. So it dislikes heavy wet soil. Therefore, if you add grit and gravel, you give better drainage, and particularly if you raise the area, you're giving lavender the perfect opportunity to grow really well. Space the plants a foot apart, And once you plant them, give them a light trim back to even them all off. That'll help to thicken them out and make a fatter, fuller plant, and it'll encourage them to fill in together. So space them a foot apart, add plenty of grit and gravel into the soil, a little bit of fertiliser as well, and you're good to go.
Okay, so Suzanne wants to know, do you have any recommendations for something that will grow in an ugly retaining wall? It needs to cover it. She's tried lots, but nothing has really taken to it.
Okay. So if you want something that's self-clinging, that'll root onto the wall itself, there are a couple of really good varieties. So you've got a climbing plant called Hydrangea petiolaris, or the climbing hydrangea. It climbs like ivy. It sticks itself to the wall. And once it feels the wall, it'll actually stick onto the wall and continue up the face of the wall, producing lovely white flowers. Once it gets going, hydrangea, once it's planted, this is the climbing hydrangea, takes about a year to settle in, and then after that it just takes off and puts on about 2 to 3 feet of growth per year. So that's a really, really good plant. Others, if that are self-clinging, so you've got any of the ivy varieties, so things like Paddy's Pride, Ivy Paddy's Pride, or Canariensis are really good. Or if you want a small-leafed ivy, Gold Heart or Gold Child are really good as well. I have Gold Child covering my entire garage, and it self-clings, it's evergreen, retains the leaf all year round, and is really easy to grow. So that's quite a good one as well. Other hardy and easy to grow climbers are the evergreen Virginia creeper. So that's quite a good one. A plant called Cissus striata. It's evergreen, beautiful autumn colour, very fast growing, 5-6 feet of growth per year. Or a lovely clematis variety called Montana, Clematis montana, which is actually in flower at the moment. Lovely shell pink flowers. Again, a very easy clematis variety to grow. So for me, the climbing hydrangea, some of the ivy varieties like Canariensis, Paddy's Pride, Gold Child are all really good and evergreen. Or Clematis montana, or what was the other one I mentioned? The evergreen Virginia creeper. There's quite a good range at the moment. Maybe pop into your local garden centre and ask them to show you some of the easier to grow climbing plants.
Okay, so this is the final question from Brendan. So bindweed widespread in raspberries and even compost. What can I do?
Okay. So that's a difficult one, Brendan. The bindweed is a plant called convolvulus, and like the name suggests, it binds itself, it wraps itself around whatever it grows on. So it'll use the raspberries for support and scramble up through them. The only treatment I find effective with it, digging it out doesn't work, because if you leave any particle of the root, it just regrows again. And by digging it, you'll actually propagate it. So what I find effective in the middle of June, when the plant is actively growing, is to treat it with some of the Roundup gel. So it's, again, pop into your local garden centre, they'll have Roundup in a gel format, like hair gel, and you simply paint it onto the leaf of the convolvulus, and that'll help to control it. Now, you will need to give it a couple of applications, because one application won't be enough. So you simply paint it onto the leaf, it absorbs it through the leaf down into the root, and that helps to kill it off without damaging your raspberry plants. So use the Roundup gel. You just simply paint it onto the leaf of the convolvulus or the bindweed. Do that in the middle of June when it's actively growing, and that'll help to control it. So that's it from me. Remember, fantastic weather for gardening, great planting weather at the moment. We're promised a little bit of heat through the weekend and into next week, so it's going to be really great gardening weather. And I'm back here with Pat and here on Facebook in 2 weeks' time. So Wednesday, 2 weeks. Bye for now.